Hello there, friends, and welcome to episode 72 of That One Gaming Podcast. My name is Colin, but I'm otherwise known as Delicious Morsels, and here with me today is Lucas, aka Carnival9. How is Lucas today?
I am happy to be out of the Jeep.
Understandable. And we've also got Neal here, better known as VMK89. How is Neal today?
I'm doing pretty swell.
All right, and if you are new to this podcast, welcome aboard. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, or one of the many other podcasting platforms out there where the three of us get together every other week to talk about a variety of topics in the world of gaming. And this episode is dedicated to the cheaters among us. From the famous Konami code to spawning in your own private attack helicopter at will to raise havoc in Grand Theft Auto, cheats have been a part of game culture for as long as games themselves have existed. Today, we will be discussing some of our favorite memories of cheat codes, exploits, and more. But before we get into that, we'd like to talk about the games that we've been playing since the last episode. So, Lucas, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been keeping the Clone Hero train rolling. I tracked down the official set lists for all of the old Guitar Hero games. That played through Band Hero. Which is kind of, less guitar-centric, more like full band focus. So, pretty nice, reintroduction game for getting back into Guitar Hero type stuff. And as a result, a lot of songs that, you wouldn't really associate with guitar game, like the YMCA, for example, which you could actually export to Guitar Hero 5 depending on what console you were on. And,
interesting.
Yeah. Humorously, you could play as Kurt Cobain as a unlockable legend character in Guitar Hero 5, and you could make Kurt Cobain do the YMCA.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It's very strange. Also, unironically, the Taylor Swift songs included in Band Hero are actually super fun to play. There's a few other fun songs. Black Cat by Janet Jackson. It's ABC by the Jackson 5 that I almost FC'd on my first try.
Nice.
But yeah, I wrapped up the Band Hero set list and then moved on to Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock, for old time's sake. That was my introduction to the Guitar Hero games. And then got 2 sets left before I'm done with the main set list, and then got all the DLC and the bonus tracks to go through. Yeah, that's been fun, playing that on and off casually. And then I guess kind of also more casual game oriented. I've been playing a lot of Legend of Zelda Link to the Past randomizers again.
Oh no.
I think I'm on my 4th one in the last week or so.
Jeez.
Jeez.
Yeah. More or less been just doing the default randomization settings, but I've been doing boss shuffle as well. So not only are all of the items randomized, but all of the bosses in the dungeons are randomized, which is interesting. There was one of those, I think 6 bosses were randomized to Vitreous. It's normally the boss of Dark World Dungeon 6, Misery Mire, which has its pros and cons. Con is kind of a difficult boss. Pros, once you find one of the invincibility items, like the Cane of Brenna or the Magic Cape, you can turn invisible or put up a magic barrier to prevent taking damage. You can just kind of stand over the big central eyeball and spin slash everything to death. I also found out that, like, while you're trying to destroy the little mini vitreous eyeballs, the big central eyeball can take damage too when it like pokes its head out of the slime to shoot lightning from its eye.
Hmm.
But yeah, been a lot of fun doing that. Be fun to like try and organize a Discord randomizer race for that, but also like who besides myself is that familiar with Link to the Past?
Exactly.
Like, I would love to do randomizer races with the Discord, but at the same time, my niche is like Super Nintendo games. So you basically get your choice of Super Metroid and Link to the Past, and I guess technically both because I would be willing to go back to SMZ3, the Link to the Past Super Metroid combo randomizer. It'd be awful. It'd be fun. Perhaps even awfully fun. But yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Nice. What has Neal been doing?
Other than the usual Minecraft, I've been playing Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I like that game.
I have gotten not super far into it, but I don't know. I still have only one of the first the Deco Tree spiritual stones. But I've been running around looking for heart pieces as the guide recommends, which I'm sure I'm going to need once I get to some of the harder battles, because I'm struggling with the combat already, and I'm mostly just killing gold sculptulas. But yeah. Let's see, what's the last thing I did? I think I know I was in Gerudo Valley getting what heart pieces you can get there, and I think I did one thing after that, but I forget what one it was. But gotta say, I'm actually really enjoying this game.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to. I was expecting to be like, this game is too old, doesn't hold up, the graphics aren't great. And at first I was like that, but my brain has kind of gotten into a place of like, what would this be like to be a kid playing their N64 in the early 2000s and coming across Hyrule Field and realizing how huge this thing is.
Yeah.
So I'm having a good time. Yeah. I will say,
almost know that game well enough to play a randomizer of it.
Yeah, that sounds rough. Yeah, it just randomizes the dungeons, I assume, right? Like
Item randomizer.
Rooms? Oh, item randomizer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really rough. Yeah, no. So far, my favorite thing about it is picking up the chickens and then jumping off ledges and slowly gliding down.
Yeah.
That's so stupid. That's not how that chicken would be able to. That's not what would happen if physics were accurate.
Have you attacked a chicken yet?
I'm aware that chickens swarm you if you attack a chicken, so I have purposely not done that.
Oh. Shame.
It's fun.
Listen, I'm aware dolphins swarm you if you attack them in Minecraft, and I've never done that either, so I'm a pacifist.
Have you really lived?
Until you've died.
But yeah, I haven't been playing much else. Been trying to blitz Ocarina of Time. At this point, we've put up the notice. Yeah, Ocarina of Time is our next that one game. So I'm super excited. Yeah. But, Colin, what have you been playing?
Nothing. Quite literally. I have not
guitar, maybe?
I have not played a game in like probably 2 weeks. Well,
dang.
No, that's not true. I played through the I played very little. I played through the Demon Slayer game last weekend. But that was the last time I played a game, was last weekend. But yeah. So I guess there's that. I bought the Demon Slayer game because I've become obsessed with Demon Slayer. I watched the entire series to date in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Which is like 4 seasons, basically.
Oh wow, I didn't know they were up to that many already.
Yeah, the final season starts this summer in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot. I watched all of it, and it's amazing, and I'm obsessed, and I'm mad at myself for not watching it earlier. Because Demon Slayer is very good. And the game is also pretty good. It basically covers from the start of the anime to the end of the second season. And it follows the anime pretty faithfully. Almost a little bit to its detriment, a little bit in the story mode, because there's like long stretches of cutscenes where you're basically just watching the anime, but it's animated like it's in the game engine instead.
Oh, nice.
And it's really it's incredibly well animated too. Like some of the models in the game look just as good as like if they were actually like drawn and animated in like an animated show. Like it's extremely high quality.
Yeah.
And all of the voice cast in both English and Japanese take on their roles from the show, so it's really authentic and well done. And the gameplay is it's an arena fighter, like a lot of anime games tend to be these days. But yeah, the fighting's really fun, and it's really easy to get the hang of and stuff. So, and there's a local multiplayer versus mode that you can play as well, and it all functions on like a tag team system. So when you actually start the match, you pick 2 characters, and then in battle and stuff, you can swap them out, or the character that you have benched can assist and help you draw out your combos and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. I like it. And then, like, now, since the game's content is pretty much complete, like, when you install it, you basically get all the updates and stuff, and you get all of the free characters that they added over the game's seasons and stuff like that. So they added a whole bunch of the demon characters from... There's actually some season 3 characters that they added to the game post-launch stuff, even though the game itself doesn't cover season 3. But there's a sequel coming out in August that, as far as I know, covers from season 3 all the way up to the current season that aired last year. And then there's probably a good chance that the final season will be added as DLC, because I don't see them making a whole new game for just the final season of the show. So I'm looking forward to that, because it's a good game. But yeah, aside from that, it's like I bought Xenoblade Chronicles X that came out on March 20. My copy got there that Saturday. I've put like not even 20 hours into that game yet. And it's not because I don't like it. I just haven't felt like playing games.
Yeah.
I've been busy with other things.
Yeah, you've been getting into a lot of stuff lately.
Yeah, I've been busy with a lot of things that are not games. So games have fallen to the wayside, unfortunately. But it's all for a good cause. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I have and haven't been doing. So it's Hey Listeners time.
Hey, listen!
Yeah. Yeah, listen up. This is our Hey Listeners segment. And each episode, we do this thing where we ask our Discord members a prompt based on the topic of the episode. And if you're listening to this right now and like you want to do this, then you can like join our Discord. Like there's a link in the description if you want to do that. I'll leave that up to you though. You can decide. That's fine. Anyway, so we're talking about cheats and cheat codes and just all around tomfoolery today. So our prompt was based on that, asking our Discord members for their favorite cheat codes and messing around doing things in games that they probably shouldn't be doing. Our first write-in comes from Crystal Lily, who writes, using the action replay on my original Pokemon Diamond game. I got 2 Darkrai, and just going around the map and through the trees and everything to go wherever I wanted was fun. Got to see places in the game that I probably would never have been released. And of course, I had max Pokemon Master Balls, because why not? It was a fun experience back then, and it actually helped boost my confidence a bit and actually enjoy the game a lot more. I know cheats make the game easier, but for some people, they just want to have a good time. It's fun entertainment, that's all. It doesn't have to be a challenge all the time. I respect people's ways of just enjoying the games in different ways, and if a little cheat cartridge helps in that, then why not? Plus, after struggling in Emerald, this was actually something very refreshing to me. I, too, have experience with action replay and Pokemon games. I actually hacked like an entire team of shinies for my copy of Pearl, but I had an action replay for the GBA, so I had to hack them
Oh no.
So I had to hack them into Emerald and then import them to Pearl. So I didn't have access to any Gem 4 Pokemon for that. But I got like a shiny Rapidash and a shiny Ampharos and a shiny Groudon. And like the funny perk of this particular cheat code was that their natures were always hasty. So that's when I got obsessed with EV training the speed stat on all my Pokemon.
Gotta go fast.
Yep. Your opponent can't kill you if they're dead before they can attack. So I basically just had a team of shiny Gen 3 and below Pokemon, plus the Darkrai that I caught in my copy of Pearl. And they were all speed EV trained, and it was the bane of many of my friends' existence during our lunch periods in high school. It was pretty fun. And Sheik writes in and mentions the Pokemon Gem 4 Wonder Tomb. It sounds familiar to me. I don't remember exactly what that was, though, but I do have a feeling that we have also exploited that at some point, because we played a lot of Gem 4 in high school. That was kind of like what we did on our lunch breaks.
I have a bad feeling
my last year of high
that
school.
has something to do with Wonder Guard and Spiritomb at the same time.
Yeah, that's probably what that is. Honestly, you're probably right. Pretty gross.
Yeah. I mean, putting Wonder Guard on anything that isn't a Shedinja is disgusting.
Yes. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. And then Lord Kirov writes, 3 big ones come to mind. Army Men RTS, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original version, and Age of Mythology. Most of the cheats in the last one still work, and even in the modern Steam version. I also Game Sharked a couple Pokemon games back in the day, now that I think of it. More Game Sharking Pokemon.
Yep.
Yeah, there seems to be a theme going on here.
It's so fun. And then back in the day, like back in the Gem 4 days, when like Wi-Fi trading first became a thing,
Yeah.
like you can do some, you can get some fun stuff on Wi-Fi trading back in the day, because they didn't really have a lot of like safeguards like they do now. And even now the safeguards are pretty not great. People find a way around them all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, our last writing comes from Brand Flakes, who writes 2 nostalgic ones and a current one. Having an entire binder of gift codes to get pretty much any item for free from Tom Nook and Animal Crossing for the GameCube. Plugging in a GameCube controller to the 3rd port and hitting a combo of buttons to give you 99 of every item in Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life. And then carrying around a corpse and using it to steal from merchants in Baldur's Gate 3. God, I hope they don't remove that in the new patch. Despite the romancing the rogue, I am abysmal at pickpocketing. That is funny. That reminds me of the bucket trick in Skyrim. The bucket trick in Skyrim, for those unfamiliar, the way the game works is every NPC has a field of vision. But if you put a bucket on top of an NPC's head, their field of vision is cut off because they can't see through the bucket. So then you can just put a bucket on a merchant's head and proceed to rob them blind, and they would be none the wiser.
Amazing.
And then, insult to injury, you can sell all their stuff back to them.
Nice.
Good times.
Reminds me of the little exploit in Skyrim where you go to that cave near Whiterun with the blind guard. You can crouch and just like hold the walk backwards button for just walk into a wall, and it will continue to gain skill points for your stealth level.
Amazing.
So you can just max out stealth right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, it was really easy to cheat the stealth in that game. But
Yep.
It was very fun. Anyway, Thank you, everybody, for writing in. Now for our main topic discussion, cheats. Lucas, you wanted to talk about Game Genie.
Hell yeah, I did. I love Game Genie, especially the NES one. Probably the cheat device that I use the most nowadays. Even though it's pretty limited on the amount of cheats that you can enter. You can only enter 3 at a time, unless you plug in another Game Genie, because apparently you can daisy chain Game Genies to enter more than 3 codes at a time.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess Gelu beat Sega to the Tower of Power. I've actually spent a fair deal of time like trying to debug and engineer my own Game Genie codes in some games. Namely like Super Mario Brothers 1, 3, and Metroid. Metroid in particular is fun to Game Genie with because I've found some very interesting codes, like one that essentially emulates the space jump from later Super or Metroid games, but better because you can just jump anywhere. So there's that. There's one that I found that allows you to clip down through the floor by pressing up.
What?
Yeah. And this is one that I've had to like do a little debugging with in order to get it working properly in all areas of the game. Or maybe that was the space jump one. I forget. But anyways, you would when you enter that code, you'd press up. Samus would turn into like a still sprite from her morph ball animation, and then when you would release up, you would clip down about half a tile into the floor. So you could use that to enter secret worlds in Super Metroid, which is a whole topic unto itself. There's a similar Game Genie code that I've come across and also did a little debugging work with. I nicknamed it the Variable because as a side effect of the code, it replaces one of the animations for the morph ball with just one of the animation cycles of the Variasuit sprite. But it lets you clip sideways through walls while in morph ball. So it's very useful for exploring the secret worlds in Metroid, which short explanation of that is you're entering areas of the game that normally would require a elevator transition without using an elevator, more or less. When you take an elevator in Metroid, it transitions to a different tile set, and so like each one of the rooms in the game differs based on what tile set it's on. So you can like say you like bypass bypass the elevator going from Kraid's Lair to Brinstar. You'll end up in Brinstar, but it will be on the Kraid's Lair tile set and have all the rooms of that. So it'll be kind of like goofed up secret world. But yeah, it makes for fun explorations to try and find stuff. Dorian in particular is very fun to find hidden worlds in because it has an interesting side effect of like mother brain rooms appear all the time.
Interesting.
And then there's actually I think 3 rooms on old hexadecimal map that of the game that I have from I think Snowbro. Think you can find that on Metroid database still. But yeah, there's actually 3 rooms that are completely otherwise inaccessible without like these walk through wall or clip through walls, clip through floors cheats. Yeah, that's super fun. But yeah, Game Genie is fun just because like with the Game Genie itself, they included, the obligatory cheat booklet so that you have a bunch of codes to enter into your games and whatever. But they also include, before like they get to the cheat section, like a dedicated chapter to, so you want to make your own Game Genie codes.
Huh.
And they actually detail the process of like taking an existing code, what letters in the code to modify to do what.
That's
As
actually super cool.
Yeah. So it's, especially with like start on world X type codes. Like on the surface, it looks like there's only 8 worlds in Super Mario Brothers 1, but in actuality, there is like 256 worlds technically. It's just limited to worlds 1 through 8 normally because that's how the game is programmed. But if you use a level select Game Genie code, then you can explore like World 9, World 0, World A, B, C, D, etc., all the way up to Z. And then there's these worlds that have like garbage tiles from the rest of the 256 character tiles available in the game, including the blank tile that corresponds to the infamous minus world. So yeah, if you're struggling with the wall clip, you can enter a Game Genie code to start on world -1.
Nice.
Actually, also you can continue on further than, like, how Super Mario Brothers 1, most worlds are like 1 through, or like world 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, and then it goes to the next world. That's actually another side effect of how the game's programmed, where if you if world or if you beat a level, it will bring you to the next level. If the next level is a castle, the castle will bring you to the next world. But in these glitch worlds, you just keep going further up the levels until you get to a castle to bring you to the next world. So you can continue going on to, like, world X-5, X-6, so on and so forth. And there's also some fun debug content in Super Mario Brothers 3 that I've came across the code for. There's like fully intact debug menu in there, if accessible with a Game Genie code. Also like a very superpower-ish code that allows you to grab white brick blocks from anywhere, kick them at enemies and stuff. I've taken some time to try and play around with these in emulators and actually like further decipher how a Game Genie does what it does. And more or less what it does is that it intercepts NES assembly instructions coming from the ROM and replaces them in real time. And depending on if it's like a 6-letter code or a 8-letter code, like 8-letter codes will replace one instruction with another, as opposed to like the 6-letter codes, which just replace an instruction. It's wild, the sort of stuff that it does, because it's essentially just like in real time hijacking the game's ROM and replacing code. And that's what makes it cool. In a way, it's almost like the first NES ROM hacking tool in a way. But then, like later on with the SNES Game Genie, that I haven't actually played around with one physically, but I have with like SNES Game Genie codes and ZSNES and SNES 9X back in the day. Those codes aren't quite as straightforward, and Nintendo's like copyright protection was a little more stringent and picked up on Game Genie a bit more, so made it sort of harder, but also not for using unlicensed hardware. Matter of fact, the SNES Game Genie has a button on it to enable and disable it in real time.
Huh.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to like the N64 Game Shark, where there is a like physical button on the Game Shark cartridge that you can use to trigger codes. I know one that I had set up in like Super Mario 64 was you could press the Game Shark button to get 100 coins in whatever level you were in, because that sucks normally. But that thing was a piece of junk. It's like I got it to work maybe a handful of times and it stopped working. It was like $5 at a flea market, so I'm not too heartbroken. But and also just like it was one of the early revision Game Sharks that didn't have the, forget if it was serial or parallel connectors on the back of the cartridge for importing the codes instead of having to pull up a web page and type them in by hand. A nice little quality of life thing there. Yeah, it definitely would have been nicer. Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with like specifically the dedicated cheat hardware. Like comes to mind, example comes to mind first is like the PlayStation 1 and 2 Game Sharks. You can use them to region break your consoles. Um, I don't know the specifics of it on the PS2, but I know on the PS1, loading up the Game Shark disc would put the PlayStation into like a region free mode so that you could play Japan and European region games on your North American PlayStation. Something I should do because I don't have a Japanese copy of Mega Man X3 yet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's about all my experience with like actual cheap hardware. It's like a friend back in high school that I borrowed their action replay for, or well, got to use their action replay while over at their house, but on the DS, but never actually had one myself. Something I always wanted, but then never actually got around to getting. But at the same time, I had an NES Game Genie, and I was having the time of my life, like essentially assembly programming in an obscure alphabet, 3 lines at a time. It's great. In-game cheat codes, on the other hand, that's a little more accessible to everyone because they're baked right into the game. Probably the most famous being the Konami code. Good old up,
Oh
up,
yeah,
down, left, right, BA start from
shows up in
Gradius
a
1.
movie.
Yep. Yeah, it's apparently how to access like central programming of Sugar Rush and Wreck-It Ralph.
Uh-huh. It doesn't make any
And
sense because there's like an NES controller in the middle of the game, despite being an arcade game.
yep, the virtual NES gamepad in an arcade game, probably not produced by Nintendo.
No, Nintendo wouldn't make like a Mario Kart clone of their own.
Yeah. They don't want Mario Kart in the arcade enough, which is why they no longer they haven't produced any sequels to Arcade GP in like a decade. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Gradius, so like I've gotten my fair share of use out of the Konami code. It works in all sorts of Konami games too. Also famously it works in Contra, giving you 30 lives at the beat, or if you punch in the Konami code. Kind of infamously immortalized in the Akari Warriors episode of Angry Video Game Nerd is ABBA, to bring yourself back from the dead.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much experience with the Konami code. I don't know if it works in mostly only NES games, and I didn't have an NES, so
Yeah. It works in a more of like the arcade style Konami games.
Okay.
Like mainly the Contras and Gradius games. I think it was with either Gradius 3 or Herodias which is a sort of like crossover parody of Gradius, along with like Quimby, Salamander, Life Force, other Gradius type shoot 'em ups. They actually introduced a alternative Konami code because I think it was in Gradius 3. They changed what the Konami code does, where instead of like giving you all of the ship upgrades, it actually makes your ship self-destruct. So there's a second Konami code, which, when entered, doesn't make your ship self-destruct and does the like traditional all upgrades. Yeah. And then kind of going back to Bran Flakes brought up on Hey Listeners, well, the binder of cheat codes for Animal Crossings that she mentioned is actually like one of my own creation. So I printed out a bunch of, I guess it's the system that, or the system in game technically isn't cheat codes, but the way it was being exploited, it basically was cheat codes. It's like early Animal Crossings, you didn't really have a way of traveling to other players' towns like you did in the Wii, DS, 3DS, Switch versions. Like you could travel to other players' towns. It was very clunky. Like you had to be more or less like interact with whoever's town you're going to in person, and only one person could play at a time. And depending on, yeah, it was very clunky. But they also made it so that you could trade items with other players. And in order to do this, they came up with a password system. So, like, player one would give an item to, I think it was in the post office. They would give an item to, or postmaster. They would give you a password for the item, which you could then exchange to your friend. What they didn't take very good, like, do very good check provisions on this for, though, is that you could enter the code repeatedly. Like, there was no, if you enter this code, there's no check that really disables this code. Or maybe there was, and like players found, or like hackers found a way to circumvent this. But this big list of cheat codes for items in Animal Crossings that I found, you could enter the same item over and over again, get unlimited copies of like really expensive items that you could flip at Tom Nook's shop for money. And just kind of, it was an easy way to get lots of money in a very short amount of time and just kind of circumvent the actual like game. Because, you know, Animal Cross focus on like paying off the debt on your house basically, and like, you know, just get expensive items from the like Wonder Password thing, and or like get whatever item you want to decorate your house with. Had all sorts of fancy garbage. For some reason, they didn't have all of the NES games on that list, which is kind of a bummer because those were cool. I liked playing old NES games in Animal Crossings because I didn't have my NES at that point. That was the next birthday present. Then, yeah, I guess since I'm bringing up what Bran Flake said, I'm fairly certain that the unlimited items in the Harvest Moon GameCube games, I think that was a like leftover debug feature, because you would plug a controller into port 3 on the GameCube, and then pressing Z and start would like max out your items, max out your money. Which also, like, with maxing out your items, essentially maxes out your money, because then you just got all this stuff you can sell. Yeah, exploiting debug functions through unintended means is always fun too. Like, that's usually one of my favorite cheats to use when using a cheat device of some sort is like if a game has a debug function, I go right to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because usually with debug menus and stuff, there is like access to unintended areas in games,
Mm-hmm.
or like the ability to warp to like dummied out beta content. Like there is been about a decade since I've actually looked into any of them, but I've known Project 64 1.6 there or in the Game Shark codes for Ocarina of Time. There are codes that will start you in beta areas still within the game's code in Ocarina of Time. Also found a Master Quest debug ROM, which has a bunch of like debug rooms that even further show how much unused content is left over in the game, uh, including some stuff that'll crash the game, like the unused beta like ocarina pedestal that kind of resembles the warp pads for the warp songs. Yeah, I spent about like 4 hours after work one morning back when I was on third shift at the burger factory. Spent like 4 hours after work just exploring every beta element that I could with the Game Shark codes. It was great.
Speaking of debugging, I've got to bring up the Genesis games debug mode.
Mm. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
forget.
completely forgot about the Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis debug mode just being a like controller button password.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It changes depending on the game and can be easier or harder. Sonic 3 without Sonic and Knuckles is probably the hardest to get into. You have to hit the input, which I think is like 6 buttons. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a lot of buttons. And you only have the time between the Sega logo going away and Sonic coming up the screen. Which, if you know that game, it's very fast.
Frame perfect debug.
Yeah. But the reason for that is because when you get in there, you see all the Sonic and Knuckles levels too.
Oh.
Or some of them. It becomes very apparent that, oh geez, there's a lot of levels missing from this one.
Yeah. Might need to look into that.
I will say, debug mode in Sonic 2, I believe, is how you get to Hidden Palace.
Oh.
Maybe that's a ROM hack thing, or like hacking the ROM. But Hidden Palace was a hidden area in Sonic 2 that was like the most or semi-complete zone. And I bring it up because in both Origins and the mobile ports of Sonic 1 and 2, you can actually play in that level. Christian Wright had filled out the entire level into an actual playable zone. But
Christian.
But the main debug mode was mostly just either a level select, but also you could, if you hit the right combo of buttons, you could like put down game pieces wherever the heck you wanted to.
Oh yeah, that's right. It had a rudimentary level editor in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It rudimentary is the right word. A lot of times, like if you scrolled the screen and then came back to where you had placed rings or some sort of items that weren't supposed to be there, springs, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a ton of items you can access, but like you scroll away, scroll back, and those stuff disappears.
Yeah.
Part of that is probably like there's an object limit.
Yeah, and also like since it's pulling levels from ROM into RAM, it only persists with what's in memory at the moment. That makes sense.
But yeah,
because
absolutely,
it can't write back to the ROM because it's read only. But if
fair
it
enough.
were
Yeah,
like a debug console, probably using like a a serial EEPROM or something instead of or or maybe even some sort of RAM disk type thing. They probably could use that for level development, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They need some way to write back to the ROM code and write it in real time. Sounds like a development kit thing.
Yep. Basically, I will say, going back to the Christian Whitehead version, if you can get your hands on the mobile port of Sonic 1, and some of this applies to Sonic 2, but if you get into debug mode there, which is actually way easier, because obviously you don't have buttons to input on a touch screen, you just tap the letters of Sega, and then you'll hear the ring chime.
Huh.
But they decided to make the debug mode more robust, and there's way more items you can put down. And also things stick around, unlike what we were just talking about with RAM and whatnot.
Yep.
But also one they added for no apparent reason was, you know how Sonic 1's boss ends with the wrecking ball?
Yes.
The wrecking ball is one of the things you can place down, and it's got its own physics engine, like it rolls around on slopes and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. There, yeah. It was like one of the beta builds of Sonic 1, wasn't it? Where like,
is that what it is?
yeah, I think it was a beta item or beta object.
Yeah,
like,
okay, that makes sense. So they
yeah,
threw it
just
in
like
the mobile port.
Yeah, it's present in the ROM, but it goes unused. And
Gotcha.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
I never knew the origin of that, but that makes it even better.
yeah, I remember reading about that on the cutting room floor once.
Okay. Huh.
That's also where I learned about the Green Hill Zone in the Nick Arcade prototype of Sonic 2.
Right. Yep, that sure is a thing.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, for those not in the know about the Sonic 2 Nick Arcade prototype, back in the day on Nickelodeon, there was a show called Nick Arcade that it was about video games, and it was on Nickelodeon, and it basically just like a showcase show of video games. I think it also had like some sort of game show element. It kind of predates me, so I'm not 100% sure. And like I never caught reruns of it because it was all old games anyways, or games that were of my age but also to slightly before my time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But with the upcoming release of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, they wanted to have a preview promo of it on Nick Arcade. So there, in one of the episodes of Nick Arcade, was featured as like one of the challenges. Girl had to play through Emerald Hill Zone in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which wasn't out yet. And it's more or less like the final version of Emerald Hill Zone. Like they had that pretty well fleshed out in this prototype. At some point, the cartridge was found, the ROM was dumped, it made its way onto the cutting room floor and Sonic Retro with like detailed information about it. And one of the things detailed for it was you can use the level select code present in the final game, and you can see the various stages of completion, other levels in the game. But notably, one of the things left over in it was Green Hill Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 1. And it does not work properly in the slightest because it is running on Sonic 2's game engine, which features a kind of more robust and more in-depth sub-pixel engine. So, like, Sonic 1's object maps don't line up properly with Sonic 2's game engine, so you kind of clip all over the place throughout all three acts of Green Hill Zone, and Tails will die a lot because he'll clip through the floor. Stuff like loops and the tunnels in Green Hill don't work properly. Like they don't have proper like animation transition triggers. So like if you try and go into a tunnel, you actually will just run into a wall because the trigger to make Sonic go into spin mode and go through the tunnel doesn't exist. But yeah, all 3 acts of Green Hill Zone are present in Sonic 2 in that prototype, and it's incredibly broken.
Before I bounce off the Sonic bug code topic, I do want to mention, I mentioned earlier, Hidden Palace in the mobile and Origins version. You can get to Hidden Palace. One of the best things about getting to Hidden Palace, because obviously there's no natural way to get to it in Sonic 2. So what they did is, you know that pit and mystical cave zone that has spikes at the bottom? And if you're supersonic, you're kind of stuck there until your rings run out.
Yep.
That is where they put the Hidden Palace. If you fall down that pit, you fall all the way into Hidden Palace. Yes. it's perfect. Perfect entrance. But yeah. If you haven't done the debug mode, I definitely recommend it. It's a ton of fun. I will say it's like I heard about the debug mode and was like, this seems super cool, and then like I did it and I was like, okay, this isn't as cool as I thought, but mainly you're going to use that for level select if you're playing the like older games where there's no save codes.
Yeah, I guess sort of continuing the topic of like, games with built-in cheat codes. No, a fair amount of like early PlayStation 2 type games. The Tony Hawk games in particular, they had a handful of like in-game like sort of quality of life cheat codes, you could say. Like later on when it was, I want to say Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 or 3 or something like that, where they introduced the balance or actual visual balance meter for doing manual tricks or grinds and board slides. That perfect balance for those, so you could just kind of or wouldn't have to worry about accidentally bailing your combo string. I think I want to say World Tour GameCube game that I have. It's like a sort of a Tony Hawk Pro Skater clone, but you're on almost like Razor scooter kind of scooters, but they look almost more like mopeds. Anyways, it's got similar cheats. It's designed to be a clone of them. And then of course like easy character unlocks and stuff like that, so that you can play as Gene Simmons and Tony Hawk's Underground and whatnot. Fun, hidden, unlockable characters that can be accessed with cheats.
Yeah, I remember there was a Kiss stage you could go to in one of them with cheat code.
Yeah, I think that would be Tony Hawk's Underground. It's like
I don't remember.
It was an unlockable stage for beating the game too, I think.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, it's Hotter Than Hell.
Mm-hmm. I played.
I think it was in Australia or something like that. But yeah, there was a stage, and Kiss would come out and perform.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I played that game in daycare in late elementary school. But then when I got my GameCube later on in high school, I looked around trying to figure out which Tony Hawk game was the one I played back then, and I can never figure it out. So all my memories of that game are from daycare, and they're super foggy.
Yeah.
You just unlocked one, the Kiss stage. So
Tony
freaking
Hawk's
cool. I remember
Underground
that.
is so much fun.
I can find a copy or something somewhere.
Looking at my shelf of games right now, another game that comes to mind is Robotech Battle Cry.
Mm-hmm.
that has a bunch of in-game cheats you can enter to unlock different Veritech skins and like the heavy armor and the super armor for your Veritechs to use in levels, or Valkyries if you're not a Robotech fan, you're a Macross fan instead. It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
It's not the same thing.
Robotech destroyed it.
Yeah,
The way they
I don't
changed
deny
all
that
the characters' name, the way they Americanized all the characters' names.
Yeah. But also, like, this was in the 1980s, and it was one of the first animes to be, like, localized. So it kind of got the
Yeah.
foot in the door for the rest of anime in the United States. So
Still don't like it.
that's fair.
One we've covered before on the show, Ratchet had a lot of built-in cheats. Ratchet and Clank. What was it? I forget what they're called. The giant bolts that you could find hidden. If you got enough, you slowly unlocked cheats.
Yeah.
Like, I think the very first one in Ratchet 2 is a big head mode.
Big head mode is a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in GoldenEye.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I remember Big Head mode, and it was like Donkey Kong mode, where kind of made everyone built like Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
There was a Tuxedo Ratchet too. That was one of them. It was skill points. Skill points were different than the platinum bolts.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of these I've never seen. Clank's big head, I think I might have seen in one of them, but beyond 10 points, I don't think I ever got. There was a levels are mirrored version, which sounds awful.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's bad enough. That's bad enough in extra mode on Mario Kart. I don't want to do that in a Ratchet game.
Right. You can also make everybody big if you have 15 skill points. This is specifically Ratchet 2 that I'm looking at. Ratchet will wear a clown costume at 20 skill points. Enemies get huge heads. Most of these are huge heads. At 25, everybody, including the enemies. Beach Boy is one, where he wears swimming trunks and sandals. During gameplay and cutscenes? Oh, I forgot about that. And then the very last one is unlocked after beating the Impossible Challenge. You can play as a snowman, apparently. Yeah, I definitely remember Tux mode. Because my dad kind of preferred that over the armor look. And it is in the cutscenes too, which is very surreal when you've got especially tuxedo mode going.
Yeah. Like I've been hired as a secret agent.
Hello. Less cheat related, but more like boundary break type of thing.
I do love those types of cheat codes.
The Insomniac Museum is in every Insomniac game. And in Ratchet 2, if you go out of bounds, you can get to it. Probably talked about this on that one game.
I do believe we briefly touched on that.
Yeah. But related to that, the Need for Speed games also had similar issues with, like, because both Underground and, well, Underground 2 too, but Underground and Most Wanted on the GameCube, some of the, like, areas that were supposed to be locked off by, like, the arrows that are like, don't turn here, you could drive through some of them because they're improperly programmed.
Always fun.
And in Most Wanted, that was super cool in multiplayer because that actually allowed you to go into the open world.
Yeah.
In multiplayer, which wasn't a thing somehow, but yeah.
Be a lot cooler if it was.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest downsides of that game, was that open world was not in multiplayer.
Yeah. You just have to find bad collision or potentially, like no clip type code. A lot of fun playing around in like OG Doom with the no clip code and that. The code is IDSPISPOPD.
That's the thing.
Yeah. It's an abbreviation for smashing pumpkins into small piles of putrid debris.
Oh.
Yeah. And like in the novelization of Doom, when the Marines first encounter a cacodemon, they like nickname it the pumpkin because, well, sort of a big floating orb with spikes coming out of it. So the Space Marines nickname it the pumpkin. But also it's a nod to the band Smashing Pumpkins.
Ah, gotcha.
And the Smashing Pumpkins actually, in turn, acknowledge it in their song Where Boys Fear to Tread by including Doom samples.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the no clip code in Doom 1. And of course there's also all sorts of similar cheats like give yourself all armor, or all items, all armor, invincibility, invulnerability, all the area map stuff. Your classic like bread and butter stuff. Good old uh you know, like console cheats. Bring up the game's command console to run these. Uh, oh, that's weird. Apparently, Doom's cheat codes will vary in regions that use non-QWERTY keyboard layouts. Like the the physical key on the keyboard that you would press is the same key, but because of different keyboard layouts, it will be a different letter. So like id KFA is id KFQ on a French AZERTY layout.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Probably has related to like how the inputs are mapped.
Yeah. And kind of makes it kind of makes sense in that, because like I'm sure that on a AZERTY key layout, WASD probably are different keys.
Yeah, would make sense.
Because AZERTY is still referring to the first 6 letters of the top row of the alphabet keys on a keyboard. So A and Z are replacing Q and W. So yeah, Q would be your left arrow key, and Z would be your up arrow key for WASD.
Well, you mentioned console cheats. Made me think of Minecraft cheats, which are so built into the game they honestly don't necessarily feel like cheats sometimes. Because like a lot of times they're tools from app makers or like doing admin stuff. Like you can make the daytime, and but you can do so much stuff because it is mostly made for map makers.
Yeah.
There is definitely ways you can exploit it to get crazy stuff. It used to be easier to do this, but you can still do it with the correct console commands that are complicated. You can like give crazy powerful enchants to items. Doesn't even have to be a weapon. You can make a stick that has like knockback 100, and you hit somebody with it, and they go flying across the map.
You build your own home run bat.
Yeah, right. Basically. But yeah. There is a bunch of it. Like I said, you can like change the daytime and such. There's also like flying mode. You can go into creative You can just spawn in items. There's something else I was going to bring up, but oh yeah, teleporting. Just tons and tons of stuff you can do in there. Oh yeah, the other thing was they have like things that actually like make things more difficult. You can do like turn off natural regeneration, which was actually kind of a thing they did for there was a old like second generation Minecraft survivor multiplayer server on YouTube that did this thing called ultra hardcore, which was like a battle royale thing. Like this is kind of where Fortnite's battle royale mode came from, was Minecraft battle royale. And what they did as the gimmick was eating food and filling your hunger bar doesn't heal you. So every bit of heart, every heart you lose is basically permanent. And originally that was a mod, and then like Dinnerbone and maybe even Notch, at least Dinnerbone, who was the main guy on Java Edition, participated in one of these ultra hardcore events. And after that, he implemented natural regeneration into the game, and you can turn it off in game right now to activate what was called ultra hardcore mode, which is quite a challenge, especially if you're in proper hardcore mode and you lose your world file. But yeah, that is definitely one of the cool things about Minecraft is that like a lot of these cheats are like, hey, can we do this thing? And Mojang is like, sure, we've added it in the newest version. But yeah, considering they've added like command blocks into it, which like are just blocks if you put a redstone pulse into them, then it'll activate a command and chain them together. This is how like maps are made without mods or anything. Is a lot of these like mini games you find on Realms or on the internet use command blocks, cheats to make the entire game do whatever they want.
In a way, mods are just like game or are like cheat codes on crack.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It's sort of the natural evolution of the game game genie idea, where it's like intercepting and replacing assembly instructions in real time.
Yep, basically, yep.
Yeah,
everything is a game genie code.
Basically. Yep, we're programming in Game Genie right now. That's poorly explaining what a program compiler does. Is it converts your written code into Game Genie? Because Game Genie is just weird strings of letters that actually represent assembly instructions. And compilers will take high-level programming languages, convert them into assembly, and then run them through the assembler to get machine language. So Game Genie is actually a stop along the way of compilation. Oh, I can't believe it's just been Game Genie this whole time.
It's like that meme, the astronauts.
Yep.
It's like, what do you mean it's all Game Genie? Always has been.
Yep. And I remember coming across something that actually, or like, I couldn't tell you where. I want to say it was a Task Videos forum post, but it was a big discussion of Game Genie code functionality, and someone brought up that some like N64 ROM hacks at the time were actually implemented as long strings of Game Shark codes.
Huh.
Yeah. N64 ROM images might be too large for IPS patches, so it's possible that my initial thoughts for that back then was something along the lines of just make an IPS patch for it. Yeah, it's possible that the IPS format for ROM or like ROM hacks on NES, SNES, that sort of stuff might not have been able to support N64. I don't know. I don't play a ton of ROM hacks that aren't NES or Super Nintendo. Aren't really a lot of ROM hacks in general. Yeah. I wouldn't say ROM hacks are cheats, but I mean also like you can have cheats in ROM hacks. So welcome to the incredibly muddy game or gray area.
Yeah, since this has come up, I was meaning to mention this earlier. Both our previous episode mods and this episode cheats were actually recommends for requests, I guess, for an episode by Lord Kirov. Originally, these were going to be one episode, but we decided to split them in two. So thanks to Nathan for suggesting this.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool topic. I mean, I've got a big affinity for the game Genie, especially on the NES.
Yeah.
Um,
You did that Game Genie stream.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say a while ago. I don't remember.
It was a couple years ago at this point, I think.
Oh, God. I'm aging. But yeah, no, that was a ton of fun. It was Mega Man 1? Mega Man 2? I don't remember which one it was.
That was last year, I believe.
Oh, last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not as bad.
Yeah, we started with Mega Man 1, and I found a Game Genie code that made the game behave almost like a randomizer. Where like levels completed would change between levels, as well as like what items you had. And it was very chaotic. But then also like switched to Mega Man 2, which I ended up doing a full playthrough of, with a Game Genie code that let you select parts of the pause menu as weapons, which had some very interesting results. There's a weapon that would its ability would reset the game. There was also and this one I got a ton of use out of. One of these like Game Genie glitch weapons we nicknamed Flappy Man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you were standing on the ground and used it, it would just kind of make Mega Man look like he was stuttering back and forth between his falling sprite and his walking sprite. But if you used it while jumping in the air, you would slowly descend instead of falling at regular speed. Which actually made it super useful in some areas.
Kind of like holding on to a chicken.
Yeah. That's more or less how it behaved. Like, if you were an Ocarina of Time and you jumped off a ledge while holding a chicken, you just kind of slowly glided.
That's funny.
And probably the best one was, I think it was after beating Flashman, I checked to see if there were new unusual weapons available, and it gave me metal, or one of the menu selections was just a metal blade. Started out with an empty item bar for it, but if you picked up a weapon energy refill, it just had metal blade after beating Flashman. Ripped everything to shreds for the rest of the game, including Metal Man, because he's weak to his own weapon, so he got to die twice in one hit. Yeah, and then I think later on in a different stream was when I was like doing some emulator debugging of Game Genie codes from Mega Man 3, which kind of similar to Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life, and Another Wonderful Life on the GameCube. It has some leftover debug features on the Player 2 controller as well. Like pressing buttons on controller 2 would like freeze animations, and you could like jump up from bottomless pits and all sorts of weird stuff like that. Of course, maybe you wouldn't need that sort of features in your debug stuff if you actually just made Mega Man 3 good. Well, yeah, one of the codes that I was playing around with was a code that allowed you to fight Breakman right away without having beaten any of the stages. So there's like the final Breakman encounter before the Dr. Wily stages. It shows up after you beat the 4 Doc Robot stages. But I figured out how by like going or entering the Game Genie code into BizHawk and converting it to regular hex addresses. I figured out what letters to change in that code to change what level that pointed to. So I ended up playing around with it and finding out a way to like redirect it to Needleman's stage, which I then proceeded to beat, and it showed Needleman's stage marked as beaten afterwards, but still had the like Breakman select icon. I could go in and keep playing the like not Doc Robot version of Needleman stage from the like middle selection, which was super cool. And yeah, I really enjoy doing that sort of like Game Genie debugging. It's fun. Yeah, it kind of takes me back to my computer sciencey days. Yeah, I should do another Game Genie stream sometime. That was a lot of fun.
That would be cool.
I forget if I bookmarked that site or not, but I found a website that had a bunch of like homebrew Game Genie codes on it.
Yep.
And I discovered that TRS Rockin', which was old Pokemon fan website, that also the webmaster had this a section of like Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3 Game Genie codes on their Pokemon fan website.
Remember when websites were like that? They just have random stuff that was unrelated to what the website was about, but it was like, hey, check this out.
Shout outs to early 2000s internet. They also have very cool, like, in-depth detail articles on how to manipulate things with the missing no glitch, which isn't a cheat, but using the articles on that website, you can use it like a cheat.
Well, it's not a cheat, but it's an exploit.
What's the difference?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, an exploit is an unintended cheat code.
Yeah, basically.
Especially the way that the missing no glitch worked is that like you would do the old man glitch in Viridian City, which would store your character's name into the wild Pokemon data. Then you would fly to Cinnabar Island, which does not have its own wild Pokemon data, so it doesn't get reset. And it doesn't reset when you fly either, so you can also do stuff like encounter Safari Zone Pokemon along the coast of Cinnabar Island by flying from the Safari Zone to Cinnabar Island and surfing alongside the coast, which has wild Pokemon encounter data, but Cinnabar Island itself doesn't have a wild Pokemon encounter table, so it just uses was in memory last, which, you know, if you surf there normally, it's Tentacruel and other fish. But if you fly there from like the Safari Zone, then you'll encounter Pokemon from the last area of the Safari Zone. That's cool. Makes it a lot easier to catch something like Scyther and Pinsir. But if you do the old man glitch in Viridian City and store your character's name into the wild Pokemon table, because that's how they did that, because they programmed Gen 1 poorly. Instead of having creating a like memory space to store this string in, they just stored it in a pre-existing data field. So if you fly to Cinnabar Island, then surf along the coast, it will pull wild Pokemon data based off of what your character's name is, with the even or the odd characters in the name determining the Pokemon's level, and the even ones determining the Pokemon's index number. So, like, for example, if I had Lucas as my character's name, in proper case, so like capital L, lowercase, everything else. If I remember correctly, the combination of lowercase u and uppercase L will get you something like a level 156 Charmeleon to appear.
Huh.
Good times. But it's only good times after you've encountered at least one Missingno and you've like duped your Master Balls and gotten 256 of them so that you can catch it instead of die to it.
Yes.
But yeah, TRS Rockin' has a lot of cool, like, NES Mario Game Genie codes, including one that makes it seem like it's trying to kill your NES. It's like IKAAAE, and it causes all sorts of weird graphical glitches, and it starts to lag the game until it eventually will crash.
That's fun.
Yeah. It also works on Super Mario Brothers 3. I guess the game engines are similar enough, and while not quite as extreme as Super Mario Brothers 1, it does cause weird behaviors in Super Mario Brothers 3. I believe there's another sort of like random sprites appearing Game Genie code off the top of my head that I got from there. It was SSA. It would cause random sprites to appear, well as like sprites would randomly turn into half Bowsers.
Huh.
Because Bowser is actually made up of like 4 tiles. So they would just turn into like the back half, so like the legs and back shell instead of the, yeah. It was weird. I think that's also the one that will like make bullet bills spawn and drop enemies randomly. There's Pig Ope, PIGOAP, if I remember correctly. It's, lets you swim instead of jump, which is super busted in Super Mario Brothers 1, because as long as you're in the air, you maintain whatever speed you jumped at. So you can run up to full speed and then keep yourself afloat by swimming and just go full speed throughout a level, fly over it. Super useful code for exploring like the glitch levels beyond worlds 1 through 8 using such Game Genie codes. Good times. Well, I think I've covered all of the topics of game cheat codes that I can think of to talk about.
Same.
Well, then let's move on to our next topic, our weekly link to the past. This week, turning 15 years old already somehow. What the hell? Splinter Cell Conviction, released on this day of recording, in 2010. Today is April 13th.
15-year Conviction.
This was the 5th entry in the series, and notably quite a departure for the series. This was the game that introduced multiple mechanics that Ubisoft still milks to this day and just keeps renaming in every Assassin's Creed game. But they originated here. But the mark and execute mechanic originated in this game, which was basically allowed you to tag up to a certain number of enemies and then press a button, and then you just take them all out in quick succession and stuff. And then there's a mechanic that also was called Last Known Position, which is when you are spotted, but you get out of the enemy's line of sight, a shadow figure of yourself kind of shows up where the enemy last saw you. to let you know that's where they are going to be looking to try and find you. So you can use that to kind of like circle back around them and get the jump on them again and stuff and all kinds of stuff like that. But Assassin's Creed has also recycled that ever since this game as
Right.
well.
That is
It's like-
kind of a cool mechanic for a stealth game.
Yeah.
Sort of helps teach you to how to be more stealthy in that section.
Right. But yeah, they also did a interesting thing with, and I think Assassin's Creed actually does, like, basically every Splinter Cell mechanic is now just in Assassin's Creed, and they keep like rehashing it every single game, but like they won't give us a new Splinter Cell game.
Yeah.
But also when you are hidden in shadow, all of the saturation of the world gets dropped out, so it basically turns the world black and white to let you know that you're hidden.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool mechanic. Basically, what they tried to do with this game was kind of use the world itself as a way to convey information to the player more so than like a HUD and stuff. So like you would see your objectives would be like projected up on the walls as you're kind of progressing through a level, kind of like a spotlight showing it up on the wall sort of thing, as opposed to you having a little text box up in the corner of the screen and stuff like that. But this is also where they started to strip out a lot of what made Splinter Cell special, though, because I guess at this point in the series, the developers were like, well, Chaos Theory was way too hardcore. It's like, no, actually, Chaos Theory was probably one of the most lenient games in the series to that. It was the most lenient game in the series to that point, and I think they hit the balance perfectly with that. Conviction was like they took out a lot of Sam's gadgets. Like he didn't have his night vision goggles, and yeah, it was still a good game. I really liked it when it came out, but it kind of made me sad that it was quite a big departure from the previous entries in the series.
Right.
And then 3 years later, the final Splinter Cell game, Blacklist, came out, and they went like semi-open world with that, and I never finished it. It wasn't like full-on open world, but the levels were massive compared to how they used to be. I never actually beat that game because they also replaced Sam's voice actor for some reason. It wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Would you hate that?
Yeah.
But yeah, somehow Conviction is 15 years old now, and I don't like that. The game was supposed to come out in 2007, but then they completely went back to the drawing board with it. They had a completely different game in mind, and they had to completely start from scratch again. So it took them another few years to finish it. But yeah, I miss Splinter Cell. I wish we could at least play them on modern systems. I don't know why we can't at least do that. Let me play Chaos Theory on my PS5. Why can't I do that?
Come on, Ubisoft.
The PC port of Chaos Theory is the same exact one from back in the 2000s. Like, it's old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. Like, at least remaster the games if you're not going to give us a new one.
Yeah.
Come on, Ubisoft. Frustrating.
Yep.
But anyway, happy birthday, Splinter Cell Conviction, I guess. Time to move along. That is the end of episode 72. Lucas, where can you be found outside the podcast?
Find me on YouTube at That One Game, or Carnival 9, That One Gaming Podcast. Can't believe I forgot that. Yeah, I upload long plays of the games we feature in our That One Game series of episodes. Ocarina of Time coming soon, as mentioned in the What Have We Been Playing. You also find me on Blue Sky, a happier version of Twitter. You can add me on Steam if you would like. And of course, links to join our podcast Discord and catch up on our podcast at the handy one-stop shop of linktr.ee/karn_evil_999.
And what about Neal?
Well, if you plug a controller into the second player slot and then type linktr.ee/vmk89. You will find all my links there, between my Twitch channel, stuff about the podcast, my Twitter account, and my old YouTube. So yeah, check me out in the trees as well. Passing this over to Colin. Where can they find you?
Sounds like you have to plug in one of those ASCII GameCube controllers that has the full QWERTY keyboard for that.
Full keyboard, yeah, right. I am located at linktr.ee/delicious morsels. That's where my links are at. There might be some new links appearing there as time progresses. I have some things that are going to be happening very soon on the music side of the equation.
I am excited for these new music.
I am also very excited for it. I'm
absolutely
beginning of May. I've decided will be when I launch my very first Vocaloid song, and it's an original song. I've got some covers getting ready to go too, but my very first original Vocaloid song is going to be dropping sometime first week of May. I'm going to shoot for. We'll see. I've got almost everything ready to go and set to go with it, including artwork that I drew myself. I haven't drawn anything since like high school, and I bought a drawing tablet to draw my own Vocaloid artwork.
Hell yeah.
Seems like a really nice tablet too, just from the art preview that you shared.
I'm really happy with it. I mean, it cost me $40. It's not a fancy one by any means, but it's got 8 customizable hotkey buttons on it. It doesn't have a built-in screen. It's just a touch surface, stuff like that. But I paid $40 for it on Amazon, and I'm really happy with it. So.
Yeah, it seems like a really good entry-level budget tablet.
I think it's a great entry-level tablet, yeah. But, yeah, so I've been drawing for the first time in, well, at least over a decade.
Dang.
And drawing digitally for the first time, which has been not as big an adjustment as I thought it would have been.
Yeah.
Especially considering the tablet itself doesn't have its own screen. Like, I thought it was going to be very disorienting, but it's actually not. And I'm thankful for that, because it's allowed me to kind of get up to speed with things a lot quicker. But, yeah. And all of my Vocaloid music, I am planning to actually release under the name Delicious Morsels instead of my actual name that I release all my video game covers under.
Cool.
So, assuming that goes as planned, then we shall see beginning of May. It's gonna be a good time. Yeah. I'm really excited. I wish I knew that Vocaloid and just vocal synthesis in general was as accessible as it is years ago, because I always thought that, like, well, Hatsune Miku is something that really only all the like top producers, that only they can afford that. Like, no, you could buy Hatsune Miku, who comes with her own software, so you don't have to buy anything else, for just over $200 USD.
Huh. Not bad.
Actually, no. No. Actually, I think it was like $120. Yeah. Something like that.
All things considered, what you can do with that seems really affordable.
Comparative wise, like hiring a singer to sing another song for you.
Yeah.
And it's like night and day prices.
Yeah.
Cost and everything. And I've gone pretty deep down the Vocaloid rabbit hole the last couple months. Not super deep, but deep enough to get obsessed with it. So we will be hearing the fruits of that soon enough. But anyway,
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too. But anyway, as always, if you liked what you heard here today, please be sure to hit the subscribe button where that's an option. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, because I hear they like that stuff. Hit the like button if that's a thing, and feel free to share this episode with a friend. We are going to be back in a couple weeks with another episode, but until then, have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember,
play for the cows.
Enter your name as Wampa Stompa to play as the Bears.
Waka waka.